Hi, I'm John, and we are going to get the lowdown on creating top sites along with their site collections, and additionally, sites within. If you're new to the concept of site collections and have not really understood what they are and how they relate to sites, you may want to take a look at the hi-fi video, Understand Site Collections. A link will be placed below this video. So, what I want to show you is a simple look at how we can create top-level sites ourselves if we are permitted to do so. I'll explain what are connected and standalone site collections, which is important if you're using Office 365 groups and especially Microsoft Teams. If you're not able to do this yourself, then your IT team will create the top site needed, and I'll show you how they may achieve this. If you are using Microsoft Teams and Office 365 groups, I'll show you how the site collection is automatically created for you. With the top site created, I will show you how to create additional sites within your collection. Next, we'll take a look at some of the things your IT admin will do to govern site collections collectively, including maximum storage and the audience of users you can connect to the site. Finally, we will look at some advantages for you to manage a collection of sites centrally from the top site. Okay, so I'm logged into Office 365 as myself, and this is a very clean Office 365 tenancy. I hardly ever use this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in as an end user and show how an end user would create a new site collection or a top site that will create a site collection. So I'm going to click this app launcher, waffle, grid, Rubik cube, whatever you call it. It's an app launcher. I'm going to click the Sharepoint. And then from there at the top you can see create site. Give that a click. And what it would do is it would give me a choice of templates. Now this is June 2019, so at the present time, for an end user's perspective, there's only two templates to choose from. But this is quite significant. The team site is a site that will connect to an Office 365 group. And if you create a Microsoft team, all the files that goes into the Files tab will go into a top SharePoint site that the team will create automatically. So if you want your site to create to or connect to an Office 365 group, it makes the user management much easier for the end user and allows for that management to go across all the other Office 365 apps that connect to it. Now, if I want a standalone SharePoint site collection, like you've had with the on-premises for many eons, all going back to 2001, I would use a communication site. For this example, I don't want to overcomplicate it. If you don't use Office 365 groups or Teams, I'm not going to do that. I can do that demonstration much later. So I'm going to create a communication site. I'm going to give the site a name, so I'm going to call this one Finance. And you can see there it gives me the address name. Now that's quite significant because if I actually put in something like human resources URLs with spaces and other sort of non-alphanumeric characters will display the hexadecimal code. You might have seen this in Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer where a space is %20 and 20 is the hexadecimal code for a space. But you'll see the site address automatically now for end users tidies that up. Naming convention, we can again look at that and address that at a later date. I'm just going to put in finance. And what this does, as you can see underneath, it very nicely presents the URL. So there's my normal root site, johndayqa.sharepoint.com. There's my managed path. Managed path is just a name that groups the site collections into a nice category. So as well as sites in Office 365, you have teams, and in on-premises servers, you can use any managed path you like, and you can organize your site collections into different organizational or visible groups. Put a description in. A little tip when you're creating sites and apps is use that description. Take advantage of it. So as well as putting a description of this, what this is for. So access for finance staff members. But if I made this accessible to other members of staff, if I wanted other people to come in here and do some processing like expenses or overtime, and I had little areas for that, what would be useful for them, because they may not know what it's called. Now, I might want to put in there a few other keywords, because that's metadata. So I could put in there expenses, overtime, credit control. And the idea is that if they do a search for the site rather than navigate to it via any hierarchy we provide, by putting those words in, it makes it easier to pick them up. There we go. So there it is. There's my language. I'm going to leave that to English. And then I'm going to go to the bottom and click finish. Now, because this is a standalone site collection, it's not created and connected to an Office 365 group, I won't be asked for who the owners and who the members are. What will actually happen, in fact, is I will be the site collection administrator. So whoever creates the site at the top and then creates the site collection therein becomes the site collection administrator. Okay, so there will be situations where your IT team, for many governance reasons, may not provide you with the ability to create site collections. What will happen is they will probably build them on your behalf and give you a link to that location so you can go in there and manage your site and your team. So how does that work? How do they do it? Well, I'm just going to give you one example, one very quick example, by going into the admin. And from the admin, I'm going to go into the SharePoint settings. So I'm in here, very fresh tenancy, so you can see a lot of pop-ups as they do come up when you're new to any particular features. And then on the left-hand side, I'm going to go into active sites. And you'll see that I've actually got about 3 or 4 in there. I've got a finance. There's a finances that I tested first. Always do it in advance before you go live and put it on video. And there's my root one. There's my company administrator owns that one. So I want to create one from here. It's very much the same procedure. The admin will kind of do the same thing. So if I click create there, in the same respect, your admin can create a team site that will be connected to an Office 365 group, or they will create a communication site which is not connected to an Office 365 group. Now, these templates have various different sort of features and they have different look and feel, but ultimately a site template is a site template. So, you know, you can build the same sort of tools and features and content into these sites. But what if the administrators want to create a team site but not created and connected to an Office 365 group? Well, they go to other options and give that a click, and here they can choose a team site, but the difference is that won't be connected to an Office 365 group. There's a few others in there, and these are primarily sort of what we call classic templates. So these are the ones that you had in the older SharePoint, and these will be slowly blended or replaced with modern equivalents. And maybe some of them have been done while I'm speaking. All things change while you're sort of unaware of it. So, but the principle's the same. I'll go into here. Well, I've done the finance. Let's do the human resources. And you can see that what the admin team have got control over is that they can change the managed path that they would use. There are different sort of choices. There is a sort of reason why you'd use sites and teams, but again, your organization may not respect that. They may have their own sort of arrangement, so I don't want to confuse the matter. It does provide me with the non-spaced or the simplified sort of address, but I can, like you could have done with your own site collections, like I could have done with finance, I could actually make that address easier. So I'm going to put HR. And again, because the IT team will not be managing that site collection, they would hand that over to someone. So in many respects, they would provide that to a username or an email address, or they may be giving that to the first line support, so the support team become the site collections. There's so many different ways that can be governed, and your organization will decide upon that. So I'm going to put myself in there. There's a golden rule that I'll talk about later when we do site collections. So there we go. Same sort of settings here. I can set the time zone, and I could do this in advance. Took me a while to look for my own location there. Click finish. and hey presto, hey nonny no, site will be created and appear in there rather shortly. You can see the little spinning arrows there, and there it is. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, I've got a little cheating icon there that takes me to my root site. You can build these yourself. This goes into the organization profile, and admins can create that very quickly. But here I am now inside my root site, and just to prove a point, I'm actually going to cheat here. I'm going to go into my site collection by just typing in the web address. So there's sites and then finance. Press enter. So it's very straightforward. If you know what your site team name is, or the actual web address name, you can just put that in very quickly at the top. Hopefully there'll be lots of links that will take you around. But what I want to do now is just show you how to create a site within here. So I'm inside my finance site. I want to create a team site for my credit controllers. So I'm going to go to site contents. Here I am, and then I'm going to go into my top tab there. You can see I've got my contents, which will show me all the apps that are inside my site. If I go to subsites, you can see I haven't got any at the moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to this button at the top here and create a new subsite. So as I said, I'm going to call this credit control. Now this actually uses currently the old classic new site page, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be modified by Microsoft later in time, so that it caters for mobile phones and tablets, which is what the modern aspect is all about. So I'm not going to go through the whole detail. I'm just going to put in the title. The classic though made you think about everything, so it wasn't clever, it wasn't removing spaces, etc. You had to sort of do your own sort of shortcuts. You have to think about the best URL names. Choosing your site templates, I can pick a classic subsite. You just can't create classic top sites anymore. But I'm going to leave it and stick to a typical team site. I'm also going to leave the permissions and the links navigation at the bottom of the page alone. So I'm not going to go into that, just want to create the site. So I'm going to click create. And I'm now inside my credit control. You can see there's my finance site / and then there's my subsite credit control. Now there's a sneaky trick, which if you've used old Sharepoint servers before in the past, on-premise services, you may be familiar with this, but there's a sneaky trick. If you want a visual map of your site collection, you want to say, look, here's my site collection, here's my top site, and here are all my subsites. I want like a Windows Explorer style view of this. And this is still available at the moment. If I go to my settings gear cog and go to site information and then into view all site settings, you're taken to this page. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cheat here. You can see where the word settings is in the page URL, in the web URL there. That's the page I'm looking at. I'm going to replace that with site manager. Just going to get rid of the settings word, nothing else. Replace it with site manager, all one word, and press enter. And what you're taken to is a very old classic view of your site collection. So it doesn't matter what site you're in. I know what site I was in when I did that because it appears in yellow. I actually got to this page by being in the credit control site. There's my top site, there's my subsite, and any other subsites that I created would be available here. So that's a lovely trick. It allows you to keep a map of your site collection, and a lot of people still use this because it's very quick to be able to create new sites, new apps very quickly from here, and you can manage things very quickly. So that sort of tab, sometimes you'll see people have that sitting in the background, or they'll have a link that just quickly takes them to this page. Very useful indeed. Now, how do we manage the quota? How do we manage the users that are allowed inside these sites? So as admin, this is an admin thing. I'm going to go back into my admin. And again, as end users, you won't have the ability to do this. So you're just getting an idea of how this can be done by your admin team. Now I'm going to do these site quotas manually. Now the storage in Office 365 is dynamically done for sites or top sites. So each site collection, as they are still referred to, the name is changing, but each site collection can have up to a maximum of 25 terabytes. So you don't have to muck around with the quotas or the limits yourself. However, 25 terabytes of information per top site or site collection is an awful lot and of temptation to leave redundant files, and it's a lot for people to manage. So you may want to limit it. There are other reasons, many governance reasons why people might want to limit it. So what your admin can do is they can go into the settings, and in here there is the storage limits, as you can see there. And you can see the storage limits is automatically being done. And it says there, site will use the storage they need up to a maximum of 25 terabytes. If I wanted to reduce that, if I wanted to set the storage limit myself manually, I'm just going to click manual, click save. And now if I go back to the active sites, what I'm able to do is select a particular site, and now I can see the storage button, and I can now choose what storage I would like to set aside for that site. So let's give them a generous 10 terabytes. So 1000 gigabytes is a terabyte. There you go, 10,000. Okay, and I'll set the notification at 90% of the capacity used. So when it gets to 90%, I'll get warned that I'm reaching my limit. Okay, so the other site collection setting I wanted to show you is how to define what scope of audience to share content with. When I select a site collection and click share, I can choose number one is only people in your organization. So that's all the users I've registered within the Office 365 tenancy. I can allow the site collection admin to share with external users, providing the IT administrators have added them to the Active Directory of users. I can allow the site collection admin to share content with their choice of external users, and they will share to any email address they choose. Or finally, I can have a site collection that is to be shared with members of the public and give them links they click on, and that user doesn't have to log in. There you go. So what kind of things can a site collection administrator do centrally from the top site? Let's have a look, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to go into my finance site now, and I'm going to go into the settings gear cog and go into site information and view all site settings. So there are a few things that you can configure and set up for the sites in the collection. But if I go into this site collection features, now these are just sort of built-in tools and functionality that you can enable or activate. And once you've done that, they're available to all the sites. So you can actually use these features in any site you like. Site policies. So at the top of the site, you can set a site policy, and that means that if you are creating sub-sites that are going to be over a short period of time, what you can do is set up how long the site should last for, sort of 6 months before the site's closed. And closure of a site means that your third-party apps, your Office suite apps, can't connect into them and work with them remotely. And then after the closure, a month later, you can delete the site. So this is kind of handy for sort of very short-term projects that are going to sit in sub-sites. I can turn on the reporting, and the reporting allows me to capture information in the site, like activity, who deletes what, who's been checking out documents, who's been opening documents, so I can get a detailed view. Now bear in mind your admin center does have an analytics reporting system where they can look at activity, but from your point of view as a site collection administrator, if you want to go into a bit more detail, you can activate these. These are normally deactivated by default now in the modern sites because these are being replaced by modern replacements, but these are just some features that you can enable. So that's it. A nice simple look at how sites and site collections are created. With your site collection, think about what you want to use it for, who your audience is, the content it will contain, and how that content will be managed. This helps identify if you really need more sites or not. Do not create more sites because you think it will make life easier. In time, you'll discover they can overcomplicate management. Very often I talk to customers who have already made their mind up about using certain Office 365 tools. They are using Sharepoint but not Microsoft Teams, and this is most commonly because they have not identified its purpose in the business. Prepare for what may come in the future. If you hear anyone say, we use Microsoft Teams but not SharePoint, you can now tell them actually you are. It's where your files are stored within Microsoft Teams. When it comes to SharePoint, I have a saying: if you never leave the house, you cannot see how big the world outside really is. SharePoint is a massive beast of power and functionality. 5 days of training will offer you a mere 5% of its out-of-the-box capabilities. It is a huge beast. Do not be afraid to explore, explore, explore. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please keep coming back to my channel. I am looking to build a video library, and you all have a free pass to the knowledge. Stay safe and have fun.